Every week, a new case. Nothing less than the truth. Before we move on to the next one, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and in the end, tell me what stuck with you the most.
To truly understand what happened and why this case still haunts so many people to this day, it's essential to know who Luke Durbin was. Luke was born and raised in Woodbridge, a small, quiet town in the county of Suffolk in eastern England, known for its peaceful atmosphere and classic British countryside streets. It seemed like the perfect place for a safe and happy childhood. And in many ways, it truly was for Luke. Since he was little, people described him as a polite, charismatic boy, deeply connected to his family. His mother, Nicki, and his sister, Alicia, were the most important people in his life. Luke adored both of them, and he made no secret of it. Their relationship was always full of affection and mutual trust. Friends remember him as a kind, fun young man who loved music, hanging out with friends, and was always willing to help others. He wasn't known for getting into trouble, but like any teenager, he went through his ups and downs. Typical changes of youth, doubts, internal conflict. Nothing out of the ordinary for a 19-year-old trying to find his place in the world. But in 2006, it seemed Luke had finally found his path. He had recently landed a job at a local greengrocer, which brought him more financial stability and a more structured routine. According to his mother and close friends, he seemed more mature, optimistic, and excited about the future. He talked about his plans, seemed happy, and gave the impression that he was in a good phase of life. For his family and everyone who knew him, Luke was a young man with a big heart, but also with a reserved personality. He wasn't someone who liked drawing too much attention to himself, and even when facing difficulties, he only shared them with those closest. And that's how the night of May 11th began. That Thursday, Luke had arranged to go out with a group of friends to enjoy a night out in Ipswich, a larger town located about 13 kilometers from Woodbridge. Despite being busier, Ipswich still had that small-town vibe, with bars, pubs, and nightclubs that attracted young people from nearby town. Before heading out, Luke stopped by a friend's house, where he left some of his personal belongings, his phone, wallet, and house keys. Maybe he didn't want to worry about carrying valuables around, or maybe he simply thought nothing bad could happen. After all, it was supposed to be just a fun night with friends. The group went to Club Zest, one of the most popular spots in town. The place was lively, and Luke seemed to be having a great time like any other young person his age. Drinks, conversations, laughter, loud music. Nothing suggested this would be the last time he'd be seen safe and sound. Around 2 or 3 a.m., the group started to break up. Some left earlier, others got lost in the crowd. At some point, according to witnesses, Luke ended up alone. A seemingly small detail that would become the starting point for a mystery. By 4 a.m., after the club had closed, Luke was alone on the streets of Ipswich. No phone, no wallet, no keys. Vulnerable and exposed, walking along empty streets, try to find a way home. What should have been just another fun night out turned into one of the most puzzling criminal mysteries in the UK. And what exactly happened to Luke Durbin that night remains a question with no answer to this. At 4 a.m. on May 12, 2006, Luke Durbin was last seen on the streets of Ipswich in eastern England. Security cameras in the area captured him walking alone, crossing Dog's Head Street, one of the main streets in the town. It was a cold night, typical for the British countryside, and the streets were practically empty. Luke had no phone, no wallet, no keys. He was trying to find a way to get back home to Woodbridge, about 13 kilometers away. A little earlier, he had tried to get a taxi, but without money or ID, he couldn't get a ride. That would be the last confirmed visual record of Luke Durbin. One of the most unsettling pieces of information emerged shortly after. About 10 minutes after Luke was seen on camera, a dark-colored Volvo with fake license plates was spotted driving around the same area. That car has never been properly identified, and to this day, no one knows for sure who was inside or what their intentions were. That seemingly isolated detail became one of the central points of the investigation. For many, the appearance of that car right after Luke's disappearance was no coincidence. Investigators, his family, and the public started speculating that the vehicle could be directly linked to the case. But at that moment, in the early hours of that morning, no one imagined that the smiling young man, full of plans, was about to vanish without a trace. When the sun came up and Luke hadn't returned home, concern began to grow. His mother, Nicki, tried calling his phone, but the calls went straight to voicemail. At first, she thought maybe his phone had run out of battery or that Luke had crashed at a friend's place. After all, they were all used to the typical rhythm of late nights out. But as the hours passed and he failed to contact anyone, alarm bells started ringing. Luke's belongings, his phone, wallet, and house keys were still at his friend's house, where he had left them before heading out. That only deepened the family's concern. He had no way of getting home on his own, and if he were somewhere else, he surely would have reached out by now. That's when Nicki went to the police and reported him missing. The authorities began investigating immediately. CCTV footage was collected, searches were carried out in the area where he disappeared, and friends, acquaintances, and possible witnesses were interviewed. At first, the case was treated as a typical missing person report. There was no concrete evidence of a crime, and unfortunately, as happens in many cases involving adults, the authorities initially assumed Luke might have gone off on his own or was simply taking longer to resurface. But that theory quickly lost credibility. Luke's personality, his background, and especially the fact that he left all his belongings behind, didn't match the profile of someone who simply decided to. As days turned into weeks, the case began to take a more serious tone. Friends and family put up posters, local newspapers and TV programs covered the disappearance, and public pressure on the authorities increased. Investigations revealed that over 100 people were questioned in the early days. CCTV footage was analyzed in detail. Luke's movements, from a moment he left Club Zest to his disappearance, were carefully mapped. But his trail ended precisely there, on Dog's Head Street, at 4 a.m. The dark Volvo with fake plates became one of the main. Police made public appeals for information about the vehicle, but no concrete progress was made in identifying the car or its occupants. Unconfirmed reports began to emerge. Some people claimed to have seen Luke in different parts of the city. Others said they spotted him in Woodbridge, and even as far away as London. But none of these sightings were ever verified. With no images, no reliable witnesses, all those supposed sightings remained nothing more than rumors. Meanwhile, Luke's family plunged into a nightmare. The feeling of helplessness, fear of the worst, and the absence of answers became part of daily life. His mother, Nicki, and sister, Alicia, dedicated their days to searching for Luke, participating in interviews, organizing campaigns, and demanding action from the authority. The case soon gained national attention. British TV programs aired reports about Luke's disappearance. There was public outcry, but answers remained scarce. Missing persons experts and support organizations got involved in the case. Searches were carried out in rural areas, lakes, and nearby forests, but nothing was found. Over time, the lack of concrete evidence caused the case to cool down. The investigation, although never officially closed, lost momentum as the years passed, and no new relevant. For the family, not knowing what happened that night remains a daily torture. The disappearance of Luke Durbin stands as one of the most puzzling and frustrating unsolved cases in the UK. Despite the early efforts and significant public attention, all that remains are grainy CCTV images, the record of a suspicious car, and countless unanswered questions. But the case was far from over. In the years that followed, new clues, unexpected turns, and theories would emerge, fueling the mystery and making the main question even more unsettling. Where's Luke Durbin? As the years went by, no answers surfaced. Luke Durbin's case began to draw even more attention from the press and the public. The absence of concrete evidence and his sudden disappearance led to multiple theories, some based on police investigations, others fueled by uncertainty and public speculation. The first major turning point came in 2010, when the case was officially reclassified as a murder investigation. Until that moment, authorities had treated it as an open missing person case, considering various possibilities. But as time passed, and there was no sign of Luke being alive, investigators began working under the assumption that this change in approach brought new, and at the same time, unsettling details to light. One of those details was the discovery that Luke's name had been used in an attempted bank fraud. Someone, still unidentified, tried to open accounts and carry out transactions using his personal information. At first, this raised suspicions that Luke might still be alive and deliberately trying to disappear to start over somewhere else. But soon the investigation revealed that the fraud was unrelated to his disappearance. It was a common scam, where criminals use the personal details of missing persons to commit fraud precisely because tracing the source of that information is more difficult. In the end, this discovery only raised more questions than it. At the same time, police intensified the search for information about the dark-colored Volvo with fake license plates seen driving in the area just minutes after Luke vanished. Internal reports suggested that the vehicle could be linked to criminal activities, including drug trafficking and extortion in the Ipswich area. Despite efforts, the occupants of the car were never identified. What was initially seen as a key lead ended up becoming yet another mystery. In 2020, a new revelation added even more complexity to the investigation. Police revealed that, according to witness statements and years of investigation, Luke may have been discreetly involved in dealing small quantities of drugs. It wasn't a major criminal operation, but something occasional, as happens in many small towns. Still, this alleged connection brought a new element to the case. According to police, Luke may have accumulated debts with local criminals and, because of that, may have become the target of threats or retaliation. This theory could explain the sudden disappearance, the presence of the suspicious car, and the overall silence surrounding the case. But Luke's family and close friends have always questioned that line of investigation. To them, Luke was discreet, cautious, and even if he had been occasionally involved with drugs, it seemed unlikely that this would lead to something so extreme. Moreover, his behavior that night didn't suggest he was running away or acting suspiciously. On the contrary, he tried to get a taxi, wanted to go home, and showed no signs of fear or desperation. In addition to that theory, others have gained strength over the years. One of them is the possibility of an accidental death. Ipswich, like many British towns, has rural areas, woods, and rivers nearby. Some believe that alone and vulnerable that night, Luke could have had an accident, fallen into a river or a hard-to-access area, and his body was simply never found. Despite this possibility, the fact is that extensive searches were carried out around Ipswich and Woodbridge, and not a single trace was ever discovered. Another theory suggests that Luke may have been the victim of random violence. Perhaps he crossed paths with dangerous or aggressive individuals that night, resulting in a crime with no clear motive. But again, the lack of witnesses or any solid evidence weakens this. There are also those who believe in the possibility of a voluntary disappearance. This line of thinking suggests that, for personal or psychological, Luke may have decided to leave everything behind and start a new life away from his family and friends. But considering his profile, someone very close to his mother and sister, with plans for the future and no clear signs of emotional crisis, this theory is considered extremely unlikely by his family and experienced investigators. The truth is, the case of Luke Durbin has become a puzzle with too many missing people. Every theory seems to have elements that fit, yet all of them also have gaps that are hard to ignore. Meanwhile, the twists and turns continue. Police still receive reports of alleged sightings, new information, and leads that, most of the time, turn out to be unfounded or inconclusive. For Luke's family, the pain of uncertainty renews itself every single day. The lack of answers, combined with constant speculation and rumors, only fuels their suffering. His mother, Nicki, and his sister, Alicia, continue fighting to keep the case alive in the media and to make sure the search for justice doesn't fade away. Every year on the anniversary of his disappearance, new campaigns are launched, public appeals are made, and hope mixes with the exhaustion of endless wait. Even after almost 2 decades, the mystery of Luke Durbin's disappearance remains one of the most intriguing unsolved cases in the UK. A riddle that, even with theories, clues, and plot twists, continues to challenge authorities, experts, and society as a whole. Luke Durbin's disappearance remains one of the most frustrating criminal mysteries in the United Kingdom. Since that cold night in May 2006, countless questions have been raised, clues investigated, theories debated, yet no definitive answer has ever been found. Today, nearly 2 decades later, the void left by his absence continues to weigh heavily on his family, friends, and the entire community, which, despite the passing of time, has never stopped searching for Luke's mother, Nicki, and his sister, Alicia, remain determined to keep the case in the public eye and in people's memory. They give interviews, organize campaigns, distribute posters, and constantly update social media with appeals for information. For them, Time does not lessen the pain. On the contrary, the absence of answers only deepens the sense of injustice and the agony of not knowing what really happened. The British police still treat the case as an active investigation, although they recognize the enormous difficulties imposed by time. Missing persons experts and support organizations continue providing both emotional and technical assistance to ensure the case is not forgotten. One of the most intriguing elements of the investigation remains the dark-colored Volvo fake plates, caught on CCTV near Dog's Head Street just minutes after vanished. For investigators, this car was no coincidence. All evidence points to it being directly linked to the young man's disappearance. The timing, the use of fake license plates, and the fact that the vehicle was never identified strengthen the theory of premeditation. Many believe that, unable to get a taxi and with no other options, Luke accepted a ride from them, likely unaware that he was walking into a trap. This theory gained even more traction as information emerged over the years, pointing to Luke's possible involvement in small-scale drug deals. Although his family rejects this possibility, police consider it plausible that he may have fallen into debt or unintentionally gotten involved in a dangerous environment. In addition, the circumstances of that night, the fact that Luke was alone, without money, without a phone, without his wallet, made him vulnerable. A perfect situation for ill-intentioned people to take advantage. However, despite these lines of investigation, no solid evidence has ever been found. No reliable witness has come forward. No body has been located. The Volvo remains missing, and its possible occupants are still nothing more than speculation. Adding to the mystery are countless unconfirmed reports of alleged sightings of Luke in towns like Woodbridge, Ipswich, and even London. These reports, though intriguing, have never gone beyond the realm of rumors. None of them provided a concrete lead that could help solve the case. Another detail that puzzles investigators was the attempted bank fraud using Luke's name. Although this was ruled out as directly related to his disappearance, it highlights how long-term missing persons cases often open the door for parallel crimes and add to the continuous suffering of families. Today, Luke's family remains active in various awareness campaigns on social media, including support groups and pages dedicated to gathering information. The case is frequently revisited by British TV programs specializing in unsolved crimes. Luke's disappearance has also reignited discussions about the safety of young people in small British towns, the need for better late-night transport options, and the devastating impact that cases like this have on the mental health of families. For authorities, the biggest challenge is time itself. The more the years pass, the harder it becomes to gather new evidence, locate witnesses, or reconstruct the events of that night. Even so, police emphasize that the case remains open, and any piece of information, no matter how small, could be crucial. Luke's mother often says, "No one disappears without leaving a trace." For her, the truth exists, and one day it will come to light. This belief, shared by thousands of people following the case, keeps hope alive that the mystery will one day be solved. And that's exactly why awareness campaigns remain so important. Every poster on a wall, every social media post, every TV report has the power to remind people of the case, reach new eyes, and perhaps bring forward an overlooked detail or long-forgotten piece of it. Luke Durbin's disappearance is not an isolated case. Sadly, thousands of families around the world experience the same nightmare: the sudden disappearance of a loved one and the unbearable weight of silence and uncertainty. Stories like Luke's remind us that justice is not always immediate, that the system sometimes fails, and that often time only deepens the wound. But they also teach us the importance of resilience, of hope, and of collective action. And you? What do you believe happened in this case? Do you think Luke's involvement with dangerous individuals is the most plausible theory? Or do you believe in something completely different? Share your opinion in the comments below. Your participation helps keep this case alive and could make all the difference. If you enjoy content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave a like. Here, we investigate some of the world's most intriguing mysteries, always with respect, responsibility, and a commitment to seeking the truth. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.